We had some amazing new trailers this week, release dates, the first half of the year is filling up, we got an interesting Assassin's Creed Mirage rumor, and way more gaming news to go over, so sit back and let's go. It was a bad week for EA as they lost $6 billion in market value because of FC 25 and Dragon Age underperformance. Basically for FIFA 25, Football Club 25, they had less sales in terms of microtransactions over the recent holiday season than expected, but I think the Dragon Age situation is way more interesting. So they namely announced that they had 1.5 million players in 2 months, but that is 50% of what they expected. And the 1.5 million players does not mean copies sold, so basically every account that touched the game through game sharing, EA Play with the trial, or that refunded it also counts. And I don't think this will get much better as the word of mouth is not really great, so I for one think that this means that we will never see another Dragon Age game again. Inquisition sold 12 million units, this game did 10% of that to put it into perspective. But I also think that this might be the end of BioWare. They are now solely focused on Mass Effect 5, but really if you are EA, you're at this point, Mass Effect 5 is still early. Do you really want to invest a few $100 million into this? What are the chances that you make a profit? Because it could just turn out to be another Mass Effect Andromeda. Now the fact that there's a Mass Effect TV series in the works might help EA see it through, because if that is a success, that will help the game as well, as we saw with Fallout of course last year. Still, the single player business for EA is really a small part of what they do now. It's all live service, and now the underperformance of Dragon Age is actually hurting them way more than they gained. But there's more going on. Apex Legends lost 70% of its Steam players in 2024. There are still millions logging into the shooter every day, but that is a huge drop for one of the biggest hits of the last decade. So they got many fires to put out, although they said they plan to turn this around in the next 12 months, as they expect to launch more of their iconic franchises, with Battlefield of course likely being one of them, although that's also not a sure hit. And it feels like their Black Panther and Iron Man game are still further out. Well, let me know what you think of the situation in the comments. I think that BioWare will see some layoffs following the Dragon Age disappointment, but that it will still release the new Mass Effect and that the fate of the studio really relies on the success of that title. So we got many new trailers this week. I will touch on the biggest ones from Xbox in a moment, and the story trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows I think also deserves a shout out for if you haven't watched it yet. But I think the most impressive video we got this week is totally for Phantom Blade Zero. They released a trailer for the Chinese New Year, and as you might know, I was lucky enough to play the game already at Summer Game Fest, and I can tell you, this is really what playing the game will be like. I really love how it feels like a real sword battle, where enemies don't hold back, you gotta parry a lot, but they parry a lot too. It's super satisfying. But it's in particular the boss design that stands out here. You got this small group of enemies that can also come together, and then the boss will jump on their sword for like a special attack. When you counter at the right time, you'll be jumping on their sword, can then hit a lot, but if you take one of the smaller enemies out, they can be revived, so it's smart to focus on the boss. And when that health bar goes to 0, wilder things happen, because then these smaller enemies jump up and revive the boss as sort of a marionette with brand new moves. This got even higher on my most anticipated games list for sure, and seems like they received extra funding due to Black Myth Wukong's success. Reminder, that game sold 20 million in the first month. For comparison, Hogwarts Legacy sold 22 million in 10 months. Investors see these AAA Chinese games that are not live service as the new golden goose, and rightfully so. While I don't think it will be as big as Wukong, I can see Phantom Blade Zero easily hit the 10 million sold mark. So very briefly in the trailer, maybe you saw it, they know that the release date will be announced in 2025. As I reported earlier, 2026 is I think when they aim to launch the game, so at Summer Game Fest in June 2025 they might announce a early 2026 date. They now also, by the way, confirmed PS5 Pro support for the game. Let me know your hype level, of course, in the comments down below. Now, it does seem like a PlayStation console exclusive though. It's also coming to PC, but seems like Xbox gamers will be missing out again. And speaking of Xbox, they had their yearly Developer Direct show, and it was a real banger. All the games are coming to Game Pass day one, and for me there were 2 highlights in particular. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is one of them. It's coming April 24th, and it seems to be way more than a pretty looking turn-based RPG in a cool fantasy setting. I love the premise about a big monolith that every year showcases a number, and everyone above that age disappears. so everyone dies younger and younger. And your goal is to stop this with a party of humanoid characters that all have their own special fighting styles, but there's also Monaco, a monkey-like creature who can turn into enemies he defeats, and there's also this crazy balloon type guy who you can use to explore the world map that will have secret bosses and stuff as well. And that seems to be the big new feature for Doom the Dark Ages 2. Larger open spaces with many unlocks and treasures to find. And the small puzzles we saw kind of reminded me of God of War, but now we have a boomerang, a shield saw. Like, there should be secret caves and dungeons you can miss if you only focus on the main story, which sounds really appealing to me. Overall, the combat is way more grounded, literally like boots on the ground, avoiding incoming projectiles. You gotta parry, shoot with crazy new weapons. There are different melee weapons for up close combat. I really think this game will be nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It seems to include everything that was great from the previous titles in a very popular, more Elden Ring-like, mysterious open world approach. Coming May 15th already with 2 days early access if you buy the premium edition, and yes, all the big Xbox games now have that, including South of Midnight. But I don't really know about this game. Like, it totally has a cool setting, the cutscenes and acting look surprisingly great, but I don't know if that will be enough to carry the pretty standard gameplay. They seem to try and emulate many other third-person action titles, but not excelling at anything or doing anything different in that gameplay department. Combat really doesn't look that great, apart from the boss battles that might be the highlight in that regard. I hope it's better than the 7.5 that I'm kinda seeing here. I wonder how good this game will do. And a big surprise was Ninja Gaiden 4. Team Ninja is actually teaming up with Platinum Games for the sequel that follows a brand new ninja in a very cool futuristic world. I don't know why they called it 4. I think it would be smarter to just call it like Ninja Gaiden or Ninja Gaiden colon something. But yeah, that's my take on it. I do think it's cool that they could have gone for a more Souls-like approach, which feels like the go-to for many action games these days. But Ninja Gaiden 4 really seems to stay true to that hack-and-slash fantasy against many fast-moving enemies and some tough-looking bosses. And the game is already coming out at the end of this year, but they shadow dropped a remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2 that is also on Game Pass, which was a cool surprise. Of course, let me know what your favorite announcement was at the Xbox Developer Direct. Maybe you don't agree regarding South of Midnight. Drop it in the comments, and of course, leave a like. That would really help me out. And subscribe. We're close to the 1 million. Would be awesome. And then you don't miss the gaming news that we drop every Sunday. I got one quick shot this week, a news story I will go over quickly. They namely announced the roadmap already for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We got free content like a barber, a hardcore mode, and horse racing coming between the spring and summer. And then 3 paid expansions. In the summer there's a quest to help a mysterious artist with a shadowy past. In the autumn there's a blacksmith DLC where you learn more about your adoptive father. And likely have to do the blacksmith minigame a lot, with the third DLC in winter seemingly being the biggest one, including a new area, the Sedlec Monastery. Seems like the other DLC expansions are in the existing world, and I'm really curious if you look forward to this game. Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, totally check Dennis's hands-on preview if you haven't already to learn more about it. I will leave a link to it in the video description. Time for the rumor roundup, where we go over the biggest leaks and rumors of the week. I will give a star, with 3 stars meaning I believe it, and 1 that I think it will likely not happen. We start with an article from French newspaper Lysical. They namely report on a surprising deal with Saudi Arabia and Ubisoft that seems to include the development of a DLC for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, Ubisoft first always said that Mirage would not get any story DLC, but that they do have ideas on how they could extend the story of Basim. Seems like they might go and explore that after all. And yes, it's weird with Shadows of course dropping March 20th and a Mirage DLC happening after that, but with the new Animus Hub that you maybe have already seen, this is basically the new boot up menu for all the future Assassin's Creed games starting with Shadows, and you can boot up Mirage from this menu too. So if they launch new content for Mirage, they can easily market it to people who are playing the newer games. Like the Animus Hub actually enables Ubisoft to more easily add stuff to the older titles, because they can directly communicate to everyone playing Assassin's Creed. While when the new content for Odyssey dropped 3 years after launch, you really had to learn that through our channel or other sources that there was an update for the game. Now they can let you know while you're booting up the latest installment. So I think it's possible. Mirage did pretty well for them, and it will likely be a while before we get a more traditional Assassin's Creed like that. It also does seem kind of random for this French newspaper to come up with yo, there's a DLC for Mirage coming, of all things. While the Ubisoft CEO meeting with Saudi, I think more likely means that they are striking some sort of deal that sees Saudi's game fund take over parts of Ubisoft again. They seem to be selling certain assets that might not be really profitable for them. We will see though. For now, I'm giving the AC Mirage DLC rumor 2 stars. We also had a leak that a new Avengers game is seemingly in development, but that it won't be connected to Square Enix. Like, obviously Square doesn't even own Crystal Dynamics anymore, who made that game, and I don't think they want to burn themselves on another Marvel title after even Guardians of the Galaxy did not do well. Look, I totally think Marvel Games now totally knows what would work and what doesn't work for an Avengers game, so they could totally go to another developer, but I still don't know. I feel like the ship has kind of sailed for an Avengers game. And what publishers would want to make that risk, right, and develop a game like that? There's also a rumor from Daniel Richman, and I looked up his other rumors, and, well, they're not really trustworthy. So I'm gonna give this a 1 star. We do have the Marvel 1943 game, of course, coming this year. I think that's the closest we get to an Avengers game in the next 5 years, at least. They should have just made Marvel's Avengers a single-player only game without all the live service stuff. So this coming week, we get the launch of Eternal Strands, the new game from ex-Ubisoft Quebec people, led by Dragon Age Trilogy director Mike Laidlaw. It's coming to Game Pass day 1 as well, and there's a demo on Steam for if you want to try it. I'm excited to make way more Assassin's Creed Shadows videos for you, so look forward to that here on the main channel. We'll of course do my weekly news stream on the React channel on Monday. Hope to see you there. We will dive deeper into the news stories we discussed here. I will share more in-depth thoughts after playing Shadows, answer some of your questions. It's going to be great. A countdown to that stream will be in the video description. Also, a countdown to the Assassin's Creed show will be in the video description. Frankie Boy and I will be back on Wednesday, and we will both be discussing our time with the game. And of course, a big news roundup like this will be happening at the end of the week on Sunday. So subscribe to not miss anything. We're close to the 1 million, so subscribing would be awesome. A like would, of course, also be awesome. And check out my in-depth hands-on after playing Assassin's Creed Shadows by clicking on the screen. I'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.